Yes, namaste. We have two questions that came in that I hadn't seen on our April Satsang, so let's talk about them now. One, here, I've got to look down to read this, it's on my computer screen. Can you please repeat the prayer when we're attacked by an evil spirit? Well, of course, I mentioned what I did, that I said, I'm going to bless you and pray for you, know the love of God. And of course, they ran away, they didn't like it. Uh, but that was me and my temperament and the situation I was in. So the best thing to do is when you feel you're under any kind of bombardment, is to just do japa. Do japa of Soham, or if you use another mantra, and let it be, rather than give them attention. Because you see, we're often told, say, oh, we'll ignore what she said, ignore her, ignore him, because then they'll just be more and more troublesome. So if you put your attention, uh, they can draw from your attention, especially if you don't like them. They like to feed on your fear, or they like to feed on your aversion. So you ignore them and you fix your mind on the highest through Soham Japa or through any mantra that you have discovered helps invoke and evoke higher consciousness. So you just do that. And a lot of times, the main thing is ignoring them because they're egotists and they go away. But you just do that. And also remember, you don't know your karma. Perhaps you need some kind of a bombardment. Perhaps you need some kind of presence for the reaping of the karma. So ignore it and just keep on with the japa, with the japa, with the japa, the meditation and the japa, and they'll go away. Or they may even be helped. But it's your indifference that will help them, not like, oh, you poor soul, I want to rescue. Evil spirits do this often. Oh, boo hoo, little me. Don't you feel sorry for me? And oh, don't you want to help an earthbound soul, etc.? Beware, beware. Don't stick your head in the lion's mouth. All right. So ignoring is best, but surrounding yourself with positive vibrations through the japa really puts you in a safe spot. All right. Then the other question. Many religions elevate their deity to Brahman. Could you please comment on this? Well, you see, I've said and I've written, and I really mean it. It's not like, oh, isn't this cute and sort of Rinzai Zen sounding? As a yogi, you have to be able to think in two directions, in two opposite directions at the same time. And that may make no sense, and it's all right. Just forget it. When the time comes where you get the ability to do it, you'll know you've got it. Don't try to go after it because I wouldn't know how to tell you to get it. It just happens. What it really is, it's when the right brain functioning is increased and the left brain functioning is decreased. That is when the intuition comes into play as opposed to just the intellectual ideas of something. Okay? So then, all deities, well, if they're just mythologies in somebody's mind, there are mythical deities that they don't exist. But there then are many of these lesser forms. And they are and are not Brahman because what is outside Brahman? If it's not in Brahman, it doesn't exist. You and I wouldn't exist. So you and I are Brahman. Tattvamasi, thou art that. So uh, these, such as these that are depicted here, these are Nitya-rupa. These are infinite, eternal type of forms. And in creation, they're manifested, and dissolution of creation, they unmanifest, but they're always there. They're very real. And mostly they are, as I say, aspects of God's consciousness. To talk about little different situations, it'll just muddy the waters and won't get us anywhere anyway. Uh, so uh, you can say, well, somebody believes in, I don't know, Zoom deity that's, say, a Mediterranean deity, and then they exalt it as being Brahman. Well, it's, to make such a mistake doesn't really matter. If the idea is to pray to the deity and get the result, and they get the result, then that's fine. You see, God is not the snob we are. We have standards. And, well, if you're not going to come up to this, then I'm not going to react, etc. Well, God isn't like that. Because God is seated in our heart. And so if you do take someone like, say, the jaguar god is worshipped in South America, I don't know the name for him, and say, well, that's the absolute God. Well, it's not going to insult God. God's not going to be mad and say, why, you liar. It is not. And the jaguar god, if he exists, may not even know he's not the absolute God. So just go for what you can go for. But that may seem a very unsatisfactory thing. But you see, the thing is, it doesn't really matter. It's what are you doing? You see, um, Padre Pio, the stigmatist, was a supernatural person, and I mean, indeed, supernatural. And he, of course, saw things far deeper and far higher and far vaster than the Roman Catholic Church normally sees and the members. Well, that's what made him a saint and them not. And you often sometimes have saints supposedly saying something that doesn't agree with their religion, well, because they see it better or they see it more truly. All right, so uh, someone, by the way, there was a Catholic who practiced real yoga sadhana, and he went to confession to Padre Pio. And everybody wanted to keep seeing Padre Pio. So when he heard confessions, he just sat right out in the middle of a big room, and the people came up and they talked to him just very quietly. But people sat around, maybe 100 people or more, and just watched him because from the seeing of a saint, again, your mind shapes into their form and you get in tune with their form, and part of that holy blessing and awareness comes to you. So, anyway, this man was from Rome, actually. And so he went to San Giovanni Rotondo, he went to confession, and he said, because talking about spiritual life, he said, uh, and also I practice yoga. He didn't lower his voice at all. And Padre Pio said, shh, keep quiet about it, but keep it up. It's a good thing. You see? He knew people's minds. People would come up to receive communion when he had said Mass and was giving out communion. And there were people that he would say, get away from here. You have no business coming here. You have all this darkness in your heart. Go away and you cleanse yourself and then you come back. even more. I mean, I've read of this where he had the sacred holy sacrament there, and he put it back down on the altar, and went around the altar railing and came behind the person and kicked them hard right in the rear end and said, "Get out of here." He did. Sometimes he would just give a person a whack, or he would take the Franciscan knotted cord and give them a whack. So, and then at the same time, you see, but he showed great depth of understanding. Mhm. So then, there are always people that think they're devotees, and then devotees are a family. And what do you have in a family? Competition between siblings, of course, because they're not living in the supernatural. The saint is just a lucky charm for them to hold on to. So one will try to tell on the other and feel like, "God, I'm a better person than they are." Therefore, one time when a woman I met was there, she saw it, she heard it. She was American, but she was Italian. She understood the language. So one of the people that were considered themselves devotees, many of them lived in that area and came every day to see Padre Pio. This one woman came to him and said, uh, "Do you know so and so? You know so and so, who is, of course, frequently there. She believes in reincarnation." Well, you can imagine, oh, reincarnation, your Orthodox Christian falls dead. See? She believes in reincarnation. Padre Pio said, "It doesn't matter what you believe, whether you believe in reincarnation or whether you don't believe in reincarnation. The only question is this: are you trying now to know God?" And he said, "Know God." Didn't say purify your heart, save your soul, ensure your spot in heaven. He said, "Know God." This is the way of the saints. Praying to saints, getting miracles from them doesn't amount to anything. But if we really want to please them, we'll pray to them to help us know God. And that is the truth of it. So then, again, little Jack Horner sat in a corner with his Christmas pie. He put in his thumb, he pulled out a plum. It was hidden in there. Actually, there's a whole event that happened, and this is like a nursery rhyme made up to, well, I'll tell you what it was. Why shouldn't I? I've taken up enough of your time. Um, in the old times, which I find absolutely astounding, but for centuries and centuries, ownership of any piece of property was according to who owned the deed. I mean, had it in their hand. And if you stole the deed and you kept it away from someone, you owned it. I mean, I understand. That sounds crazy, but that's the way they did it. You are willing to think we're in a bit higher yuga than the people were then. So then, any of those of you who've purchased properties, you know all the hoops you jump through to get to make sure you've got a right title to it. So there was a man named John. I don't know if his name was Horner or not, but the King of England sent him a pie at Christmas time. Now, in England, a pie is often a savory thing. It's not a dessert. It's not made out of fruit and sugar. Uh, it's just, well, we have the word chicken pie. You see, for a chicken dish, it certainly isn't a sweet dish. So he was sent some type of baking dish, and there was a crust on it. And he was told, His Majesty sent this Christmas pie to you as a gift. And so a crust is stiff, and he just touched it a bit and it broke. And there wasn't any filling inside. And so he took it off, and there was a piece of paper. And the paper was a deed to a huge estate. And so he took it out, and it was his. Therefore, little Jack Horner sat in a corner with, it says, eating his Christmas pie. He put in his thumb and pulled out a plum. The plum was a deed. So this is the way. So let's all be Jack Horners and pull out the plum and forget the rest, because it's all Maya anyway. Therefore, thank you for your patience as usual. I've taken up the time, and I have to confess to you, I doubt if it will change. I'm 83 years old, so I started this talk when I was 6 months old. I could carry on a conversation with an adult when I was 1 year old. So the momentum is unstoppable. Thank you very much. Namaste. Namaste.